Hunter, we're ready when you are. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. Thanks everyone for being here and the slight change of day and week and all of that kind of stuff of our usual meeting time. So thanks everyone for the flexibility. In terms of our sort of, opening our meeting, I just want to kind of look at our agenda, which we're going to talk about our presentation, our annual report presentation later. So more, I think, just welcoming everyone and appreciating everyone for flexibility and when we're meeting. It's a change in our usual day and week. And from there, let's just move forward into roll call and reviewing the minutes from January 14th. Does that sound all right, or does anyone have anything to add to our opening? No? All right. So here, I think our typical protocol when we're meeting by video conference is we each go around the room and state that we're here. Correct, Tiffany? That seems easier than me calling folks out. So Megan Regan, chair.
Carol.
David, oh, sorry, Carol.
Go ahead.
David Harrison is present.
Brandon Williams is present.
Jacqueline Ramsey present.
Tambila Covington present.
Carol, did you?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself? I wasn't sure if it was on top of David. Okay, all right. And we're joined by Tiffany Oliva from the city. So thanks everyone. Has everyone had a chance to review our meeting minutes from January 14th? If not, I can. I think Tiffany's going to pull those up. Did anyone have any comments, edits, discussion about the minutes?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as they have been presented.
A second.
And then for voting and all in favor, we'll go around and say our names. So Megan, yay.
David Harrison, yay.
Brandon Williams, yay.
Carol Eichmeyer, yes.
Jacqueline Ramsey, yay.
Tambila Covington, yes.
Good evening, Michael. If you don't mind introducing yourself for sort of our attendance, because it's a public meeting on a video conference, and then if you would like to vote in approving the minutes as received.
I don't know if I called in for to be present. Pardon me.
Can you state your name?
Yes, Michael Banner, yay.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
All right, the minutes were approved as received. So let's move into our new business. We've got a lot of good new business on our agenda, and I wanted to open up with Jacqueline's discussion about the Liberty Street market. So she had prepared a report and a good amount of recommendations, and we didn't get a chance to get to that in the last couple of months. So I wanted to make sure we had time and did that first. So Jacqueline.
Okay, I'm nervous, but yeah, I've been practicing.
It's all good, right? It's all good. Yeah.
Well, I want to give you some background on to help you bring me, you into my ideas, so you could envision it. you know, most of y'all know my daughter died. And after about 9 months, I kind of got it together and I wanted to see Winston-Salem. So I started volunteering the way that her and I would have if she had gotten her transplants and gotten better. So I started volunteering for all the different races, for charities, for cures, things like that. MS, ALS, JDRF and all. And I saw how each one of them, followed the same kind of formula. And then I started going to the parties downtown and the street parties and the gatherings downtown. And I volunteered with that. And I could see how the city, threw a party or a parade. And I volunteered for lots of other organizations that had galas and balls and proms. And, I was finding that Winston-Salem had a formula and everybody was following that same formula. And I thought, well, when I got to the market and I saw the beautiful space and I thought, well, the light bulb went off and I thought, well, we could do these things here and make this a beautiful, welcoming space for the community. And I noticed when I was at the market, it was kind of quiet when I was there. And I noticed that the vendors had gotten a radio and they cut it on and they were line dancing. And I thought, well, they want music too. They brought their own. So as I was standing there looking over the market, ideas came. And so I thought, well, when I go to the, the races and the street parties, they always have, food. At the races, it's always free for the participants. They have food trucks come with hot dogs and ice cream and, all kinds of things, they were donating. And when it was, a street party with the city, they had the trucks all lined up on Liberty Street and, everybody was purchasing from the food trucks. And I thought, well, what about inviting a couple of food trucks to our market and put them, way out in the corners and opposite corners of the parking lot. And I looked up a couple, not that they're the only ones, but I looked up a couple and there was the Gunny Soul Food and see now I'm getting nervous. And Scott this weekend took his family to Mike's Vegan cookout. And since I'm vegan, I thought, well, that's a great idea. We could invite them. And I'm sure we could keep them far apart and folks, waiting 6 feet apart. And I think that, and I noticed that Mike's food truck, I followed him and he always announces where he's going to be. So that would, it's like, oh, they're going to be at the Liberty Street Market and that brings people over. And another idea is that everywhere I went, there was live music and lots of, beautiful sounds. And so I was thinking, I've gone to the Jazz at Corporate and Plaza and I've gone to the Liberty and 6th and it's always had great turnout. And I thought, well, since they brought their own radio, maybe, we could invite some local bands because I realized that folks at the Jazz at Corporate and Plaza, they're from all over the country and they travel, but I know we've got a lot of great talent here in Winston-Salem. So I was saying, why didn't we invite a different band each week? Some jazz would be wonderful, or some blues, something like that, and spread music, through our market and make it welcoming and lively. And then another thing I noticed when I went to all these events is, they had vendors with tents. And we have beautiful covered spaces, but every race I ever attended, they just set it up in the parking lot. And they brought their own tents, they had tables, and they were able to line up in the parking lot. So what I was thinking was, we could expand our space by putting the tents around the edges of the parking lot and invite more vendors and let them set up, of course, 6 feet apart, with lots of space between them. But that would certainly give us more chance to invite more vendors. if we used the parking lot and lined them up around the edges and left parking in the middle. And I did notice there was another parking lot next to us that hopefully people could park in, because I hope this is going to become a big, beautiful event for the, the community, that they're going to come and join us. Another idea in the way of our community garden idea is, we talked about at the food summit about folks with, with seeds. And, a person like myself, I don't want to use the Monsanto seeds, that have all the pesticides in them. And so, if we invited someone with a booth that could trade seeds or sell seeds, then we could be using local, seeds to make our own home garden or our planter gardens, things like that. And I also thought about, well, how can we turn our yards into more of a food growing situation? I thought, well, if someone has fruit trees and maybe they could sell those at the market, and we could plant them in our yards and have a beautiful fruit tree over time. And what about, someone who sells herbs, plant herbs, because I've got seeds and I'm, scared they're not going to grow. But, if somebody else knows better how to grow them, we could certainly invite them to sell, herbs and maybe some food plants, already propagated for us that we could transplant into our container gardens or into our yards, because I'm going to turn my front yard into a garden. And I found out that was okay with the city. They actually encourage you to turn your front yard into a garden. So I thought that would inspire people if they saw I had turned my front yard into a garden. On the health side, when I lived near Charlotte, Candace and I used to go to like the CVS and the not a Costco, but the other one. And, they had these health checks, maybe quarterly, where, they had a cholesterol check, your A1C, your blood pressure, your blood sugars. And, it might be nice quarterly to invite someone, let's say maybe the health department, to set up and, do health screenings to help the community. Another idea is to invite a nutritionist from the health department to come out and, as it comes into the spring, we're going to have lots of folks that are bringing their fruits and vegetables to sell at the market. But we may not take them home and cook them as healthy as they could be. So I was thinking, if a nutritionist came from somewhere like the health department and had pamphlets, because that's another thing I noticed at the races and all. They had tents set up where the local hospitals came, and they handed out cozies and keychains and sunscreen and all of that. But they had all the information about their hospitals and their groups, and there were just tons of them. Depending on what the disease was, they were kind of catered to them. But, if we invited a nutritionist to come, then they could help the people take the fruits and vegetables that they had just purchased and teach them how to cook it in a healthy way. Because it's not just getting the fruits and vegetables, but it's knowing how to make them, the healthiest for our bodies. And another idea that kind of goes hand in hand with that is when Candace and I worked in the country clubs and for college, we always did site setups where you would go out and you take all your cart with you, and you had your hot plates to cook and your, pans and stuff. And we would cook right in front of the people. And we did some catering after college. And I noticed that the people, that the guests of our host would just pack into wherever we were, and they wanted to watch us cook. And I was surprised. And they told me, no, it's just like watching HGTV in person. They loved watching people cook. And I thought, well, if there was a local restaurant that, cooked really healthy food, we could, let them take samples of the fruits and vegetables that were available at the market for that week and, make some samples. And then people are like, oh, I like that recipe. Oh, I've got a recipe card. You can take that on, with you. You can make that at home. And I noticed a lot of the health food stores, they do the samples as well. Where you're just like, well, this is our featured product this week, and we made it for you so you can try it. Oh, here you go. You can buy that. So I think that idea would help promote more purchasing from our, vendors selling our fruits and vegetables. And of course, we talked about this before about having a product made from what they're growing. Like if they have, bees, maybe they bring their honey, or, products that they made from their fruits and vegetables. Like maybe they canned it, maybe they preserved it, maybe they make kimchi or something like that. And maybe we could expand our vendors to those who, turn their product into a secondary product. Oh goodness, y'all. I tried to memorize it.
You're doing great. You don't need to memorize it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. And I was thinking about our advertising. I thought, well, what if we had a Facebook page or an Instagram presence? And then I looked it up and found out that we do, but we're not doing a lot with it. And so I sent out invitations to all my friends on my Facebook. And so far, 99 of them have followed our page. But as we get started with the market again, and I've looked at other people's, pages for their markets in the area. So what I was thinking was why don't we do interviews with our vendors, take pictures, talk about their background, what they sell, do a write-up. And then every week we could put a different vendor on the site, to draw people, to show all our local vendors. And of course, it would be nice if we, posted the, upcoming market, and then each of us could share it out onto our pages and then ask our friends to share it onto their pages. And, we could really get a following to our Facebook page, which will draw more of the community, to come and visit us and give us a try. Because I really think our market could become something really beautiful in the community that drew people to it. They could see how lovely our market is, and it could just keep exponentially growing into something more full and beautiful in the community. So, and of course, if we have some leftover space in the, in the parking lot, we can certainly invite some local artisans. I've got so many people on my Facebook that, make jewelry or paint, and if there was room, we could certainly invite them to sell if there was space, to, create a real variety. If we used a parking lot for space, I think that would open up more area for vendors to come, as long as we were focusing on the fruits and vegetables and the fresh food. But, maybe there's some space, for maybe a booth or two for somebody who creates jewelry or local artists that paint. And I think that's all my ideas. Yes, I think that's all of them. But I hope you like my ideas, and I hope that you feel like this could make our market a very warm and welcoming place for the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Those were really great suggestions. And I think I would think at this point, given that the city's going to run that, and Tiffany's got a major lead in that, providing all that information for Tiffany. I think Tiffany will probably share it with Johnny Taylor. And some of the things that you mentioned, I think the city has explored before. So I know when you mentioned the like cooking demonstrations, I remember at the Carolina Classic Farmers Market, they had like a cooking show that went on for a few episodes. I don't know if Michael or Tambila remembers it when we kind of did some of our work analyzing the farmers market formerly known as Dixie Classic. But they had like this cooking show that they did and put on the local TV channel. And I don't know if it drew crowds or not, but I know I watched it and thought it was interesting. But they did a similar thing, which is like, this is, meat from Harmony Ridge and vegetables from Shore Farms. And here's the recipe if you want to make it on your own.
Well, I didn't even think about, making it a cooking show, but I was just thinking it could draw folks in. There's nothing like a good smell of something cooking, and it draws people to you. But I thought if that featured all our folks, using their crops and everything, that would once again draw people. Well, I really like to go buy so-and-so's collard greens and so-and-so's beans. And, you remember I'm new to the council, so I don't know what's been tried before.
Yeah, I know at least on the city's end, they did a show. Tiffany, do you know what I'm talking about at all?
Heard about it. I did not see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I don't know what go ahead. Sorry, Brandon.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead, Megan.
I was going to say also, like being the economist, I don't know what the regulations are, right? If you need some sort of permit to be able to cook and then serve food or something. But do you remember it, Brandon?
I don't. Well, not from a municipal standpoint, but I do remember a couple of private demonstrations in the exhibition hall that was more so product driven versus just an informational segment. I do know, however, that the Second Harvest Food Bank, they provide a service where they come on site and do demonstrations from produce that's grown in the gardens. I know I had an education garden in Diggs Latham, and a couple of instances that we had the Second Harvest Food Bank to come out and do some on-site demos in the garden. So
super. Yay.
That's a great resource to, potentially incorporate if that's something that we want to kind of bring into fruition, just from an experience standpoint.
Yeah, so I think those are great ideas. I think, a food truck or so. I got Scott's nod as well and had to spend my money at Mike's Cookout. It was good. With the music, I think some council members might have been at the market. We had music. We liked that idea. It's hard to find someone willing to gig for free.
Right.
And we didn't have a budget, right? So kind of saying, yeah.
I have a lot of folks on my Facebook that are actually just doing their own videos and posting them because they're so desperate to play.
Mm-hmm.
They with the COVID, they've just not been able to play. So, some might agree, to come in.
Is it possible from the aspect if there's a situation where we can provide an opportunity like for local talent to practice in that area, just to kind of get that platform, because if you provide everything so they can practice and still, create that sound, it's still going to have that attractive element to it. What you guys?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, especially if given numbers, let's say we use the other pavilion for music, and that allows more of a band and a bit louder of an experience rather than like if it's right up near that pavilion, it might make it hard for vendors to talk to customers or things like that.
That's what I was thinking, was that other covered pavilion might be great for the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be nice if they provided like a background, like a backdrop, and like you were saying, have them kind of positioned where they're not there, so the music is drowning out the communication between the vendors and the consumers. But I think if we were to kind of coordinate it and do it from a logistical standpoint, that we can kind of provide that music element as a backdrop to some of the festivals and activities simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was a great idea about the food truck. I would feel like, in my opinion, one is enough in a way that you want people like. You don't want to take away business from the vendors, but something like a food truck may
that would be a eat right now as opposed to take my food and vegetables home and cook them for the family, But I felt like we could offer that to the folks I mentioned are black or brown, and it would give another place to set up. because I know the city is great about including all the food trucks, in the festivals and things. And I know they have Fridays at the old Bailey Park, so they give them lots of opportunity. So if a few wanted to come, that would be, I'm hungry right now, as opposed to I'm going to buy fruits and vegetables and take them home and cook them for the week. But I thought, that would draw the community to us, so it can be this fabulous place to congregate every 2 weeks.
Can I add a few words real quick?
Yeah.
I love your ideas, and I think that's the type of energy we need. But I do also want to throw a word of precaution in by looking at some of how, like, when things grow too fast, sometimes, we just say it like this: the city seemed to be very pleased with our work this past year, even if us who participated in it might have felt, okay, it's kind of sluggish, or we could have more participation, or whatever the case may be. It turned out to be something positive that the city could hang their hat on. So now we're going into version 2. And I want to just be cautious that we trust our process, and, we're making sure that we avail opportunities to the people in the community, because I know the city sometimes can be very excited about an idea, and then they'll start bringing in people to help out. But we hadn't even asked the people in the community. We hadn't did a proper assessment to see like the chefs in the community, or, the different nutritionists in the community, or the food trucks, or the artists. You know what I mean? So a lot of times,
Yes.
our people we'll start off something and get it very excitable, and then in the end, we'll get left out of the process. We'll get outdone by people, who might have more pedigree, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So I love what you said, but my only precautionary word would be, if we could continue this organic growth as we've done. Like, I love how you put the parameters around, who is invited to the market and things of that nature. So we can really grow the Native community, so that they have a chance to grow into these leadership positions and these positions of respect. If that make any sense.
Right. And, we talked about at the food summit that we wanted to keep it, with only the Black and brown vendors and folks we invited, so that it was from that community, about that community. So all my suggestions were to keep it, from the Black and brown communities, and showcase them at the market, and not let it stray somewhere else.
And I didn't take you saying anything besides that. I'm just saying, if we can just be very intentional, and it's not, I'm more tired than anybody of pulling a race card. It gets tiresome, but I do want to be intentional about, just making sure that the people in the community have a chance to participate. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, like, the health department is great. I'm sure we got great nutritionists out here, but I would like to see who we could come up with. I don't know if we could vet some of these people in the summit, like, to find out what kind of talent do we actually have in our community. You know what I mean? People who can actually.
The only reason I thought of the health department is, it would be free. They would come and do that as a service to the community. That was my only thought. I haven't explored it well enough to know, but it was just a first thought about, well, the health department has nutritionists, and, they would do that for free. Again, finding out who would want to give their time for free to the community. So it was just a starting point of the idea.
And I do think that keeping it organic, I think keeping the community based, if we were to incorporate, the food trucks or whatnot, I think if they were sourcing their products from farmers within the community. Anything that we doing, even from the talent, as far as from the music, we need to kind of make sure that the community has the priority in terms of how we're sourcing that talent to showcase, giving the platform to showcase. So I do think to have something, this sort, or to entertain it, that the resources or everything should be taken from within that immediate community, so that community can give.
Absolutely, that was my idea.
And it's sustainable. And it'll show them a way to not only to show how to, really emphasize that community, aspect, but it also emphasizes that sustainability factor in terms of being able to grow from table. What is it, the term from farm to table and things of that nature. Being able to show them and show those members in the community, because I'm sure we have nutritionists or people who have that type of background and those types of, that credentialing and within the community. So I do think that, being able to identify those people in the community, that immediate community, would be most beneficial. And I think it would be the best way to kind of create that bond and create that sense of community by using those people in the community to kind of showcase these things.
Well, the 3 food trucks I suggested, not that I've spoken with them, but they are black and brown business owners. And that's why I picked those 3. Not that I've communicated with them in any way, but, I picked them because, for an example, because they are black and brown vendors, so that's why I thought we mentioned those 3 food trucks, as a possibility to invite.
Yeah, I think these are all good thoughts. And I think, we're mostly on the same page. And to me, kind of what I hear, what we all know is important is that this is a neighborhood, right? So when we sort of say local, keep it in the community, things like that, we're addressing the geography of where the market is located and the sense of people who have been living in this region, right? A radius of the Liberty Street Market the whole time that it's been there and been idle, rather than fulfilling its purpose, that have to walk by it, drive by it all the time and see this, I believe Mr. Banner calls it the dinosaur, right? But see the dinosaur that was paid for with taxpayer dollars, and rather have it be a space for the community to gather, to build community, to build investments, not only in, let's say, financial capital and health capital, but also social capital. And so that means, to me, a priority for local vendors. And this came up when we did our annual report. One of the city council members asked, why not expand the radius? And okay, maybe, but also recognize there are other farmers markets.
Right.
For very large Yadkinville farmers and a smaller scale producer, non-full-time producer, isn't always able to meet the expectations of those larger or other markets, So having this neighborhood or local priority at that main mission, driving whatever is offered at the market, whether that's the food vendors, whether that's a food truck, whether that's hosting various health fairs, looking at it as a community development, neighborhood investment focus. To me, is kind of what I see everyone saying.
I think it was this past weekend, I saw on Facebook an advertisement for a farmer's market that's held downtown. So near Camino Bakery. So, there's something there in that space. And then there's, of course, the farmer's market at the fairgrounds. So, people go in those directions and they get that community. So, of course, we're right in the middle of it. And so obviously sourcing from that community in between the two is what we're aiming for. That's what I think we're doing, aiming for the communities right in between that farmer's market and that farmer's market.
Yeah. So I think that's great. And I also think, it's exciting to see what version 2 is going to start to build into. in the spirit of time and all of that, I do want to see if there are any closing thoughts on Jacqueline's presentation about the Liberty Street Market recommendations, because I want to make sure we have a good amount of time for the Food Summit Working Group.
Oh, where did it go? Damn.
The agenda?
I just thought y'all made some very good points, and I'm glad you started that conversation. You know, we being very intentional about version 2. You know.
Yeah, agree. Excited. I hope that our council remains very actively involved, both individually as well as a council, Tiffany. So keep us posted on all of that as the city kind of looks at those dates and kind of your role in that. So let's move on to the Food Summit Working Group. Okay. So Tiffany made a suggestion. Would anyone like to motion to adjust the agenda to talk about the annual report next and Food Summit last?
I motion.
Anyone second?
I'll second.
Yeah. All in favor of moving the annual report discussion to the next item on the agenda? Megan, aye.
David, I.
Carol,
Michael,
yes.
Jacqueline, I.
Brandon, I.
Timbila, aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion approved. So let's talk about the annual report and presentation. I think that's myself and Michael. Scott was not able to join us because the time got moved up. That seemed to be quite a source of confusion for lots of the city folks at the meeting. But that was nice for us in terms of having a full audience, because some interns and folks that worked with Tiffany presented first. So I'll kind of turn it over to Michael to get his thoughts first, and then I'll fill in from.
From what I remember, we ran through the tasks or the duties or the expectations of the council, the 10 expectations, if I remember correctly, and then we talked about some of our accomplishments for the year, and we talked about this summit, this upcoming summit. Had this upcoming summit that we were talking about, and I guess the most I can offer on that is John Clark from the West Ward. He had some words that he might have liked.
Richard Clark.
I apologize. And, Mr. Richard Clark.
Robert. It's Robert Clark.
Oh, Robert Clark.
It sound right on my tongue. Robert Clark. Robert Clark was kind of like questioning the validity of urban farming as a means of upwardly mobilizing the people and building the economy in the community. And we pushed back a little bit, and from there we was pretty much out of there. But I know you got plenty more to say that we presented on.
No, I think Tiffany, if there's kind of a link like we got last year for folks to be able to watch it, that might be something enjoyable if you're interested to watch it. I think Michael and I went through our slides about 8 minutes. And so those slides are reflective of the annual report. Here's our 10 duties as defined by the city council. And here's our activities and accomplishments and big projects for next year. And most of that centered on, like Michael said, the Food Summit coming up and the Liberty Street Market. I would say we got a lot more positive feedback than negative feedback. It does seem that Robert Clark gives us his feedback each year. So that didn't change from last year. Last year, he kind of quizzed us on a few definitions, and this year it continued of like, what is a food desert? And there's a lot of grocery stores near Thruway. I'm not sure that was a substantial conversation as much perhaps as some of the discussion about why there was a priority of distance for production to the location of the Liberty Street Market. I thought that was a good question and ended up being a good discussion. Scipio gave us a lot of praise from attending our meeting and really valuing the work we're doing and excitement about the food summit. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, who's been kind of elbowing us to do the food summit, created our council sort of from infancy idea and has been a supporter of us as well as a person who's tasked us with certain challenges. Certainly, again, gave us some very positive commendations about the work that we've done and appreciated that when she's kind of pitched some balls in our court, we've responded. So, you know, I would say one council member reflecting on what must have been 35 years ago, taking intro to econ and not quite getting that exactly correct, at least for me as someone that teaches the class, was like, wow, people remember it. That's not exactly what we mean by specialization of markets, but I think that the sum of the feedback we got was valuing our work, recognizing what we did, especially during COVID, and really kind of appreciating what we were doing for the community. What would you say about that, Michael?
Yes, I agree. And maybe after that lesson, maybe he'll be open for, you know, a follow-up discussion. I'd like to see what he would think, or, you know, moving forward, you know, how we can carry out that conversation and see if we can bring some clarity. But yeah, overall, it's always been warm. It's always been good with the city. They've never, you know, shunned us. They've always, you know, really embraced the whole food movement. So it's to be expected. I think y'all did great. We all did great.
I thought you guys did really a good job, and that they were very supportive and just challenging a little bit because they want the group to grow and to see more out of it.
Right.
But I thought it was an excellent presentation. You guys did good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And even what was spoken to, I think it just speaks to the importance of the work and the fact that frame of thought is still out here. And, you know, we still have to shed the light on why there's a big gap in this town. So when that came up, I was like, wow, all right. But you all responded great. But I still think it shines the light on, this is why we do this. This is why we need to talk about this more. And there's more minds like that we have to continue to talk to, speak to show the light that say, hey, everything is not going to be Stratford Road. So we need to talk about that more and be honest about that.
Yeah, and I know some folks are big social media, some aren't, but Scott was unable to present with us due to the time change, but he's very active on social media, and he ended up following up on social media about the question of food deserts using actual city data. So the city's got some great maps showing city data, city employees who's developed these maps of food deserts and things like that. And I thought in a way provided a data-driven response to, in fact, we know we have food deserts. Yeah. And yeah, it was exciting for us to get to talk about all the great work that everyone's done. You know, I think Michael and I just got the opportunity to give the 8-minute summary statistics, but we've all worked real hard this year. And I think we have a lot to be proud of and a lot to keep building momentum on. That being said, how about we move forward into the food summit? I want to make sure we've got a good amount of time. And I know it's getting late. So if the working group for the food summit, Michael, Jacqueline, and Brandon kind of want to let us know where you're at.
Brandon?
Well, where we are, we're at a situation where we have a skeleton, an outline based upon, how we want to structure the content, as far as various topics, subject matter that's pertinent to the focus of the summit. So it's more so we've identified I believe we've identified some of the key presenters during the time frame. I know we were talking about a 3-day event I know we were trying to determine whether or not we were going to have a Q&A post this different breakout sessions on a day-to-day basis, or were we going to reserve the Q&A towards the end where we could give us the opportunity to get some of the questions in so we can have some of the answers formulated, so we can have some of the the FAQ, frequently asked questions, so we can have some of those, because sometimes we have people who may attend and they may not know what they want to ask until after the presentation or after the summit is over. And so we were talking about making a compilation of some of the frequently asked questions and trying to determine which or how we were going to go about answering those. We were going to do a last day or more closer to after the breakout sessions. I think we were doing a great job as far as determining what areas we were going to address, as far as from policy to from a community dynamic and from an agripreneur type of dynamic from an urban agricultural standpoint. So the thing is now is, trying to web in different presenters, as far as every little portion of it. I know we had discussed possibly doing some individuals who may have or who may be active from a proprietary standpoint to do some presentations. And then we figured that we want to make sure that if we were to incorporate those type of individuals, that we would have to keep it centered around what the goal is to inform, to really bring attention to the Urban Food Policy Council, as a council within itself, to the Liberty Market, as, and to bring awareness. So we wanted to make sure that everything was still streamlined on that trajectory. So outside of that, I think we're at specifically what the time links of each session and who will be. We have an overview of who will be pretty much be participating in which areas, but we were working on trying to solidify specifically what role each individual member would play in each day of this series, and how that particular format would go from start to finish. So we just pretty much in the finalization process with the summit. So we have content, we have the pretty much time. We were talking about between 30 to 45 minutes, right, Tiffany, Mike? And like I said, we just need to kind of finalize some of the time frames and so forth, and the date. Well, I know we were talking about the 3 days. I think we confirmed that, right? It will be a 3-day series. And as far as just on those particular days, what each day, how those days will look and how those days will present. That's where we are right now.
Excellent. Do you have a sense of the dates?
No, we were looking at more towards the end of March, early April at the latest, due to get a head start in this upcoming spring season. But as far as specifically which particular date, we have not etched that in stone.
And there, from your work with like Tiffany and such, is there a sense, Tiffany, that the city is going to be able to kind of coordinate the virtual aspect end of it for us?
Yes, we will be coordinating that. We also can produce any graphics as well that we need to for social media marketing.
Jacqueline or Michael, any anything to add?
I'm good with the explanation.
Excellent. So I think our next meeting is March 11th. So would you all like to be on the agenda again about the food summit, and perhaps then
I think so.
like, you know, I would think in a way most of the council, if possible, would like to at least be part of it or contribute in some way. And so there may be on March 11th, some sense of where council members, if they want to have an active role in it, might be useful. And that way folks make sure to get it on their calendar and things like that. Or what do you all think?
That's a great idea.
I agree.
Yeah, the more ideas, the better.
And I think more so too, you know, when we're talking about the 11th, we're getting close to that time that we need to kind of go ahead and finalize. I think by that time we should go ahead and be able to have just be able to finalize, what we're going to do, and be able to present it to the other members just to get that approval and to get that, get that green light at that time. Because the 11th after that, it's time we have to kind of make sure that we structure.
Yeah, that was my sense too, Brandon. And just to kind of make sure there was enough time, right? People's schedules or things like that. And then Tiffany, is that your sense that in terms of the council approving the event or any of that sort of quorum necessary, decorum, is that what we can call it? That March 11th meeting would be all sufficient time?
I think so. From a logistical and probably being realistic perspective, I think to do it in late March is going to push, especially if there are things that when it comes to the larger council, you all want to have a broader conversation about. The early April might be, just to keep things realistic, early April, mid-April probably is where we want to keep our head at. But I do think it'd be a fair expectation or hope to have the Food Summit work group produce kind of everything on paper so that it's ready to get voted on, and hopefully try to get that out to you all maybe a day or two before our Urban Food Policy Council meeting, so you all can review it and come prepared with questions to talk about.
Excellent.
I think if we could do it, but I think if we do it well before the 20th of April, that's when we're looking at the last frost. That's when most people are starting to plan or starting to go in ground, with their, produce and so forth. I think we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, so that would be that last weekend is like April 16th, right? I think not necessarily for myself, but for some folks, the April 3rd weekend being Easter weekend might not be the best, so maybe, after that April 3rd, but before right? So when I'm looking at the calendar, April 3rd is a Saturday and the 4th is Sunday. It's Easter Sunday. So that might be a hard weekend for folks. The next one is April 10th and 11th, right? If you're thinking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 9, 10, 11. And then the last weekend before your April 20th final frost is 16, 17, 18. Mm-hmm. So maybe the weekend of 9, 10, 11 or 16, 17, 18, something like that.
I like the 9, just at a glance, I kind of like the 9, 10, and 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do too. I think it would give folks a chance to take the information they've gathered at the Food Summit and put it into that growing season.
I agree. And I think that'll give enough time to really generate more interest. Like you have those who may get the information and go right out and become active. That may, encourage them to, if they may have missed something or if they want some more support or any more information, that'll kind of increase the likelihood of them reaching right back out to us, since something was recent and fresh, to kind of really reinforce that relationship with us and community stakeholders by being that close.
Yeah. Brandon, also, I've got a quick question for you. Did you use the term agripreneur?
agripreneur. I did.
I love it. I love it. I want to make sure I heard it right because I'm going to reuse it. That was fabulous. Yeah. All right, great. Well, any other thoughts from the food summit? Potential date of that 9, 10, 11. That's a month from our next meeting. That feels good in terms of like final sort of here's our most likely plan, most likely dates. And then as a council from March 11th, we've got sort of a month to contribute in any way that the working group kind of needs help towards that event.
Yep. Sounds great.
Excellent. All right. So kind of pencil that in on your calendar, not just our next meeting, March 11th, but that weekend of April 9, 10, 11 as the likely weekend for the food summit. Any final thoughts for our meeting? Updates, announcements? No? All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time and flexibility in getting our February meeting in this month with a bit of a change of date. Of course, stay in touch. Working group, if y'all have any information to kind of send out to the council ahead of time, we can always informally be communicating. We don't have to wait till March 11th. We just can't vote until then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Would anyone like to motion to close our meeting?
Motion to close.
Thank you, Brandon.
Sorry, I second it.
All
Yep.
right. All in favor? Megan says aye.
Aye.
Brandon, aye.
Carol says aye.
Aye.
Jacqueline says aye.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, y'all. Take care. Stay in touch, and I'll see y'all soon.
Likewise.